Hi, my name is Melissa Mel. I'm a registered dietitian and I'm part of the Body 20 Nutrition Doctor team. And in today's video, I want to address a question that I think maybe some of you have asked before, and that is insulin the reason why I'm gaining weight or not losing weight? Because insulin does get quite a lot of airtime, and rightly so, because it is important to think about and to know what its function is in the body and whether or not it is actually preventing you from losing weight or maybe causing you to gain weight. So let's jump in. First of all, it's important to understand that insulin is a very vital hormone in the body. It's released by the pancreas, and without insulin, we will not be able to live. It's there to maintain and stabilize our blood sugar levels. So you can almost think about insulin as a key that actually unlocks your body cells. So think about your brain cells, your liver cells, and your muscle cells to transport the glucose basically from the bloodstream into the cells so that it can actually do its job. So the glucose is there to give energy to the cells to do its functions that it needs to do. So insulin is basically the key that gets that glucose into the cell. So you can see that without insulin, we won't be able to have energy in our cells and we would then die. So insulin is also important for the storage of excess sugar or glucose in our liver, called glycogen. We need glycogen stores in the liver and in the muscles for days or maybe moments in your life where you maybe haven't had anything to eat yet, or maybe you're on a low carbohydrate diet, or whatever the case may be, or you're exercising and so forth, and then that excess sugar is there or glucose is there to still maintain the blood sugar levels if, for example, your body needs glucose but you're not ingesting anything at that moment. The last thing, and this is I think where maybe the plot was missed, is that insulin actually prevents fat breakdown, and that's something that gets quite a lot of airtime, is that insulin prevents fat breakdown. So you should not release insulin in your body because then you won't be able to lose fat, you know. And if I stop the video there, then that would make logical sense, that if we don't release insulin, then of course we will lose weight, but that's not the case. So bear with me. We need the insulin to still do all the other processes in the body. And we see with research that even though theoretically insulin prevents fat breakdown, that even with the research we see that with a calorie deficit in the presence of insulin, in other words, you are eating foods that is releasing insulin, but you're in a calorie deficit, that there is still weight loss or fat loss happening in the body. So it doesn't prevent overall weight loss. It's just, let's say for example there's insulin in the body but there isn't a calorie deficit. In other words, you are eating the same amount of food than what your body is burning, then of course there won't be fat breakdown, because it's not necessary for the body to break down fat because there's enough fuel available to support your bodily functions. However, that is not the case when there's a calorie deficit. In other words, when you are eating less calories than what you're burning, then your body needs to break down fat, and that still happens even in the presence of insulin. Okay, so insulin is definitely not the reason why you're not losing weight or maybe why you're gaining weight. It's actually, often people say that they can't lose weight because they're insulin resistant. However, it's actually the other way around. You are insulin resistant because of the fact that you are carrying excess fat. And we see that the sensitivity of insulin, in other words, or in another term is the insulin resistance, is actually higher when there's a lot more visceral fat. So with the in-body, we see that it measures the amount of visceral fat. Visceral fat refers to the fat around your organs. Now, when there's a lot of visceral fat in the body, we see that the sensitivity of insulin decreases, which means that the resistance of insulin increases. And that makes it, that where we see that when there's too much fat in the body, that there is a form of insulin resistance, and then it's almost like a vicious cycle, if you want to say, that it does get harder to lose weight. However, it's not impossible. So the moral of the story, or the point of this video, is that I don't want you to feel that insulin resistance is the reason why you're not losing weight. that is not the case. You can still lose weight even if you are insulin resistant, or if you suspect that you have insulin resistance, you definitely can still lose weight. You don't need to cut out every single form of carbohydrate or glucose out of your body because you're scared of insulin. Insulin is important. We need the insulin and we need glucose. So the moral of the story is just to make sure that you are still sticking to a calorie deficit if your goal is to lose fat, of course. Meaning, again, you need to be consuming less calories than what you are burning. So you can either decrease the amount of foods that you're eating in a safe way by following our eating plans preferably, or you can increase your energy expenditure by increasing your physical activity, for example. So that is still the golden rule, is we need that energy deficit for the weight loss or fat loss. And then likely what we do see is that when the fat loss occurs, the insulin resistance also decreases. So you actually have a double whammy there. So yeah, so that's the moral of the story. Insulin is not the reason why you are fat, if you want to say, or gaining weight. It's actually the opposite, or the other way around, that it is because of the excess fat that is leading to insulin resistance. And luckily and importantly, with insulin resistance is that we can reverse it by losing that excess fat. Because unfortunately, if you aren't proactively trying to decrease excess fat, if you do have to correct the insulin resistance in the body, if there is that persistent insulin resistance, we do see that the risk for type 2 diabetes increases. In other words, that's when we will need to start using medications because the blood glucose isn't being controlled as effectively naturally by our bodies. And then if that continues to occur, then that's when we will need to start to use exogenous insulin, which we actually preferably wouldn't want to do. So for your health's sake, it is definitely important to reduce your risk for insulin resistance, or if you have insulin resistance, to try and reverse it. And that's definitely by losing excess fat if you do have. I hope that this has been helpful. Let us know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one.